All right.
All
Can you
right.
guys see that?
Yeah. So, hey everybody, thanks so much for joining in today. My name is Zanzi, and I'm the host of the Showcase AMAs here on the Polygon Discord. Today we got some really exciting guests with us here today from Kaleido. This is a very big brain AMA session we have going on today. I always like to kick things off doing some introductions. So why don't you guys go ahead and tell us a bit about who you are, like what's your backstories, what were you doing before crypto, what got you into the space, and like what ultimately led up to you being a part of working on Kaleido.
Go ahead. Jim, you
Yeah,
want to take
sure.
that? Cool.
Sure. Hello, this is Jim from Kaleido, one of the co-founders and head of protocol at the company. So we started our blockchain journey really back in the 2015 timeframe when I was still with IBM. At the time, IBM was seeing the potential of blockchain technology not just in the crypto space, but also in the enterprise space to solve some really gnarly issues that the enterprise players have had for many years, especially across companies and across institutions, for message to reliably transfer back and forth, and for values to be shared in a way that's immutable. I was part of the team that started the Hyperledger Fabric project, which is a protocol designed for the enterprise space to use blockchain. And I was also part of the team that launched the commercial platform at IBM that makes it easier for enterprise to use technology like Hyperledger Fabric. But then we saw this being a much bigger opportunity than just one protocol. So me and Peter and two other IBM colleagues, we started Kaleido. That is a cloud-based platform that supports many protocols, Hyperledger Fabric, many flavors of Ethereum, and lately Polygon Edge, so that enterprises will have many choices when they need to use blockchain to solve their business problems.
Cool. Nick, do you want to?
Sure. Thanks, Trevor. Thanks for that, Jim. So similar background for me. Also come from IBM. Was instrumental in all of the documentation for Hyperledger Fabric and have been with Kaleido since the beginning. One thing you'll notice, and one thing we've really prided ourselves on, developing different feature functionality in the platform, is really around ease of use for developers. So we try to take away as many barriers and as many of those sort of esoteric types of hurdles that are common when you're familiarizing yourself with a new protocol. So any devs on the call will be immediately attracted to all of these really basic REST APIs that we have. And then, some additional sophisticated stuff around event streams, key management, off-chain encryption, et cetera. But it's really a platform built for, developers of all shapes and sizes so that, everyone can, harness the power of blockchain and, immediately get a proof of concept, a pilot, and ultimately a production project out the door. So we're really excited to be here and happy to show you guys the product and answer any questions that come about.
Cool. All right, Peter, you want to?
Yeah, hi everybody. So I'm Peter Broadhurst. I'm the head of engineering at Kaleido. Looking at the overall platform and the integration of all the technologies. And I'm also very involved with the Hyperledger Firefly project, which we were part of the initial founding of. It's one of the newest and fastest growing project in the Hyperledger division of the Linux Foundation. And that I hope we might be able to mention a little bit later is about all of the layers of technology that are needed between the raw blockchain and your application for that overall application to work and function, particularly in an enterprise context, getting transactions onto the chain, streaming and keeping up to date with the blockchain and building your off-chain index of the data that you need, because querying the blockchain every time you need data is just not the right way to build applications. In coordinating off-chain activities with on-chain activities, using technologies like private messaging and IPFS, coordinating those with the blockchain, and just simple things like having a REST API for your custom smart contract. So that's a particular area of passion for me that maybe might come up in some of the Q&A as well.
Cool. All right.
Yeah, some really exciting backgrounds. It's a pleasure to get to meet all you guys.
Awesome. Thanks. I guess, Jim, do you want to get into specifically Kaleido and Polygon?
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to use a few slides to get more background on the Kaleido and Polygon partnership, what we're doing, and what kind of problems this particular partnership solves that wasn't solved before. And Nick will show you guys a demo of Polygon being stood up in Kaleido in a couple of minutes, and then run a token, launch a token on Edge, and then run a bunch of transactions on it. So some of you may have seen the announcement of Polygon Edge being offered on Kaleido about 2 weeks ago. So this is really a couple years in the making, because Kaleido has always been a platform of many protocols. I mentioned a few flavors of Ethereum, Go Ethereum, Quorum, Hyperledger Besu, now Polygon, and then Hyperledger Fabric, which is very different kind of design, but also R3 Corda. So those are the protocols that are offered on the platform, but also beyond just the blockchain layer, Kaleido has many things on top of that. So I'll get into that a bit later. But this partnership makes it is very exciting for us, because it's our first flavor of a protocol that is natively born in the Web3 community, but it's been designed from the ground up to meet some of the challenges that enterprise had with adopting Web3. In particular, zero gas being possible, and running it as both as a permissioned blockchain and a public blockchain with POA and POS, flavors of IBFT consensus available. This just makes Polygon Edge a very interesting selection in our toolbox for enterprise players. So as I mentioned, Kaleido was founded in 2017 by four IBMers that formerly worked on the IBM blockchain project and commercial platform and the cloud platform. Our goal is to bring Web3 and blockchain technologies to the enterprise customers for easy adoption, because it's very complex technology, and it's a very new breed of frameworks that involves multiple parties to play together. So by nature, it's a very complex system to set up. Kaleido makes it much easier than trying to manage a multi-party decentralized blockchain system yourself. And Polygon needs no introduction here, so I'll just skip that.
Sure.
So this is a quick overview of what Kaleido looks like. This being a SaaS platform, you can open an account. We have free tiers, and we have many other tiers. different pay grades, all the way up to a contract-based enterprise tier. And within the product, you can create different chains, based on your specific requirements. You can pick different protocols, different consensus algorithms. And it has a rich set of features that makes it very easy to tweak the chain with different parameters based on your business needs. And then it gives the JSON RPC interface, a RESTful interface for sending transactions, and a high-performing event stream for you to listen on events on the chain. And all the other friendly features to make it very easy to monitor your production system with metrics and charts. On top of that, there are many other features that makes it very easy to build blockchain-based solutions on top of the underlying blockchain on Kaleido. Go to next.
Sure.
So this is sort of the high-level overview of what's in the platform when you go to Kaleido. On the bottom, so from the right-hand side, we have the blockchain as a service. This is very easy to understand. Go to Kaleido, provision your chain, pick your protocols, pick your consensus algorithm. In a few minutes, you can have a decentralized, permissioned blockchain. And you can have multiple parties all jointly manage and participate in this blockchain with their own nodes, and then you can build your solution on top of that. In the middle, we have Firefly. This is what Peter just mentioned as an open source project in Hyperledger. It's one of the newer entries in Hyperledger Foundation. The goal of this project is to fill in a big hole for building enterprise solutions on top of blockchain. It's not a blockchain protocol itself, but it pretty much involves everything else except for the blockchain in enterprise blockchain-based solutions. In terms of key management, submitting transactions, and managing transaction life cycles. Some of the protocols is pretty complex in terms of what can happen to a transaction after you've sent it to the chain. It could be a pretty long time before a transaction finally get mined into a block. How do you keep track of the life cycle? It could be stuck in the transaction pool, and what you do with a transaction that's stuck, and all kinds of failure situations. Firefly will take care of that on your behalf. You don't have to worry about, and ended up building a bunch of code that's in the plumbing layer. So Firefly is meant to address all that, so you can focus on building your enterprise logic yourself that's specific to the solution, and don't have to worry about the plumbing. And AppCloud on the left-hand side is a separate offering that deploys and manage your applications. So you have the blockchain that needs to talk to other blockchain nodes in the very chatty peer-to-peer networking, versus your application layer focuses on user experience, security, throughput, all that. So they tend to live in different networking deployment architecture. So having a separate offering to host your application layer with the blockchain SaaS running side by side is something that's very popular with our customers. So on top of that, we have 4 sort of high-level offerings that are close to a turnkey solution. So if you have a digital asset custody needs, or you need a dashboard that keeps track of all of your portfolio, whether you're a personal player or enterprise player, you can use this offering to get a full feature of managing your digital assets and portfolio. NFT platform that makes it very easy to launch a NFT ecosystem with zero gas on the side chain. Consortium, this is permissioned blockchain networks that a lot of the enterprise have chosen to use by forming a consortium, form a bylaw, set up the governance rules, and use blockchain to reflect all that. And finally, the sidechain is becoming very popular so that they are not standalone, but are attached to a higher level, usually a public chain, so that they can have values flowing back and forth, have NFTs flow back and forth between the main ecosystem and a public trading place. Next. So Polygon Edge, right? We probably have heard about all the awesome features that Edge bring to the table, but in particular, the ones that are very attractive to enterprise players on Kaleido is zero gas fee transactions. So you don't have to worry about how to adjust to the fee fluctuation. Okay. High throughput. The IBFD implementation with POA or POS with much higher throughput is very critical for a lot of enterprise use cases. And NFT and minting, very easy to configure and deploy your ERC-721 or 1155 flavored smart contracts. And also smart contract management that Kaleido provides on top of Edge to make it very easy to build an automated pipeline to manage your smart contract versions. So this is sort of a high-level picture of the different layers you will see between Polygon Edge, Polygon mainnet, which itself is a layer 2 or sidechain to Ethereum layer 1. Where would you run? What would you run where? So starting from the top level, Ethereum mainnet is still the main place to launch tokens. So if you want your tokens to enjoy the largest crypto players ecosystem, there's no replacement to the mainnet. But we all know mainnet is suffering high transaction fees. So you want to use a layer 2 like Polygon to do the majority of your significant ecosystem transactions like minting NFT. But then if you have a need for zero gas fees to support even higher transaction throughput and a somewhat closed ecosystem, you can use Polygon Edge that you set up as another layer. You can call it layer 3 or a sidechain to either Polygon or to Ethereum mainnet itself. So your applications can access all these 3 layers based on your particular solution scenario. So that's all the slides I have. Next, Nick will do a demo of Polygon Edge in action on Kaleido.
Thanks, Jim. I've tried to mute everything, so forgive me if there's any background noise. So I'm going to share my screen.
This is incredibly fascinating. And one thing I want to mention, guys, if you have any questions for our guests, just drop them in the text channel for this voice channel, or you could alternatively drop them in the voice chat text channel. Anyway.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah, it looks great, and you sound good.
Okay, thank you. All right, so just a couple slides for me. So we're lucky enough at Kaleido to have really worked with every type of customer under the sun. We've done work in the insurance space, automating first notice of loss and sharing of credentials. Worked on global supply chain projects, right, for trade finance, post-trade settlement, provenance, and auditability. Done a ton of stuff in the finance space with commercial banks and tokenizing sophisticated financial instruments. ESG is obviously a really important space and also an area that has a ton of velocity now. So we'll look through a fictitious carbon credits sort of marketplace where maybe a mining company, for example, right, can purchase some carbon credits as a way to offset their footprint, right, in the environment. And then we can hop over sort of to the B2C side, right? We've worked with a ton of retail and entertainment companies around provably scarce digital collectibles, maybe with Hollywood studios, for example. Worked with large grocery stores and other retailers to remove fraudulent activities and kind of superfluous waste with coupons. Tons of velocity in the gaming space right now. Not really on the execution or state storage of the game, right? But creating fungible or non-fungible assets that are redeemable, and then e-commerce as well. I think that one kind of speaks for itself. So let's look at a fictitious carbon credit use case on Polygon Edge right here, where we can leverage digital assets, right, enterprise grade, non-fungible tokens, and we can very easily create a marketplace for one or more additional companies in a decentralized network. To be able to purchase these assets and to be able to track them downstream and to maybe be able to trade them, right, after a year, after 3 years, or for those digital assets to appreciate over time, right? Tons of stuff. I don't need to tell this call about all the different things that we can do with, tokens and digital assets and non-fungibles. Some of the things you'll see here, Jim and Peter have already touched on this. Kaleido and Polygon Edge support for a very, very large swath of throughput, right? So if you're in the space of I need hundreds or maybe even potentially thousands of transactions over the course of a few seconds, the system can help sustain that, right? High levels of enterprise security just in terms of connection into the system and firewalled nature of your environments and of your blockchains. No gas fees, right? Very, very attractive. You can focus specifically on your application and on your users and not worry about the fluctuation of an underlying currency and the fluctuation of different fuel rates, right, on the network. And then of course digital assets, right? We have a really awesome sort of portion of the product that's actually labeled digital assets, which provides you with zero code token templates, right? Imported from the battle hardened Open Zeppelin libraries. So, click 2 buttons and you can have your own bespoke ERC20 or 721 with different configurations like mintable or like burnable. Okay, so that's it for the slides. And now we'll just go ahead and see the product in action. So I'll start by creating a fresh business network, a consortium, right? We can just call this, example Polygon consortium, and this is going to focus on, carbon credits right here, okay? Kaleido is multi-cloud, multi-region, and hybrid enabled. So your network is not locked into a specific cloud provider or a specific region. Instead, what happens is on the back end, Kaleido will fully manage all of this infrastructure for you. We'll do that low-level layer 2 networking if we need to cross, different availability zones or different cloud providers right here. And it really provides accommodation for what we see as, very modern and very diverse business networks where maybe not every single shop is an AWS shop or not every single shop is an Azure shop. Or maybe you have kind of on the far edge of, InfoSec requirements where you have a participant that, can't even run their resources as fully managed by a vendor. They need to run those on-prem or in a firewalled cloud deployment zone of their choice. So there's even support for that on Kaleido as well. So whatever level of topology that you need in your network, Kaleido is going to be able to help accommodate that for you. So we created a business network, and now we have memberships. And so my organization is named OrgABC. I received the first membership in this consortia, and we can do a couple things in this screen right here. We can decentralize our network and actually bring on an external organization and allow them to autonomously, manage and control their resources, kind of the true ethos of blockchain. But most folks aren't ready to do that at step 1, right? And so a more clever technique, a more elegant technique is to mock out how the network is ultimately going to look. So we can create additional memberships, right? Think about our carbon credit use case, maybe for a mining company, right? Maybe for a commercial bank, maybe for an auditor or a regulator, right? So we could say org DEF and then org GHI. And then what we'll notice is that when we start creating resources and creating Polygon Edge nodes and security credentials, we're going to logically bind those resources to one of these memberships inside of the system. You get a full CRUD audit log available at your network view. So for system operators and admins, you have full transparency and full line of sight over everything that's happening in the network. So now let's hop down a level and we're going to create what's called an environment. This is a child resource of your business network. And an environment is a blockchain inside of Kaleido. There's tons of different flavors that we can apply to these blockchains. We can create what we call, just a standard blockchain, a vanilla blockchain that's just going to give us nodes and give us that consensus algorithm. Or we can layer that higher level orchestration layer on top of our blockchain as well. So that would be blockchain plus, Firefly Supernode or Web3 gateway service. I'm just going to take you guys through a basic standard blockchain with Polygon Edge. So Jim mentioned our support for multiple protocols. And that's another really cool thing too when you're visiting Kaleido is you can experiment with different flavors of Ethereum, right? Or you can experiment with Fabric and Corda and figure out if one of those makes sense to a specific use case or to your specific business network. And you can create as many environments as you want, obviously. So the standard practice is to have a sandbox or a dev environment, maybe have a UAT, and then ultimately production. We talked about the deployment models. Cloud only, let Kaleido fully host this for you, or a hybrid model that supports, on-premise orchestrations. I'll go with the easy button, obviously. And now in Ethereum, right, we see all these different choices of node clients and algorithms. We're going to go with Polygon Edge and use the IBFT engine. Now, one really cool thing that you can also do is you can inflate or decrement the block period for your environment. So you can take the block intervals, down to 5 seconds or up to 20 seconds. You can bring your own custom chain ID, and you can actually drain, if you want to, you can drain the pre-funded supply of Ether that's inside of the environment, right? It sits in the Genesis block. So if you wanted to pull that out into an external account or just leave it in there as a faucet, either of those approaches are available. So you click finish. That was all of 2 buttons that we had to click there to kind of create this namespace. And then we just bring it to life by creating some nodes. So we'll create node 1. We can choose what membership we want to bind it to. We can choose what cloud and region we want to deploy it in. We're on AWS. So if I wanted to, integrate with, any of my AWS cloud estate, like a KMS instance or an S3 bucket or a VPC, this is available for you as well. In addition, there's some cool low-level things you can do actually at the protocol side, like directly on the node. We'll look at those in a bit more detail as well. And then the last thing you do is you choose the size of the node's ingress, right? How many transactions can get in? How many concurrent client connections can we have? Is this node going to be a validator or just a replicator? And you click finish, and boom, we've really brought a Polygon Edge blockchain to life, right? It was that simple. And so since we're using IBFT, we'll just play by the rules and make sure we have a total of 4 validators so that we have Byzantine fault tolerance. And then in about 30 seconds, we'll have a fully fledged P2P, highly available Polygon Edge IBFT blockchain right here. Every button that I just clicked and every button that I will click also has an API behind it. So this is, think of Kaleido, think of this GUI right here really as an admin dashboard. But you can automate all of your resources and all of your interactions with the system. So if you want to, quickly stand up environments and tear them down, that's no problem. If you want to cycle security credentials and write your own cron jobs, that's no problem. If you even want to automate kind of like what we call smart contract management and just, sync up with your existing change management systems and GitHub libraries, that's no problem either, right? So there's tons of flexible support for, complete automation and sort of, event-driven architecture inside of the system. So what I've done is I've created 2 already baked networks, right? We can come back to this one in a couple minutes once it's live and up and running. But let's start with this Polygon Carbon Credits network right here. Looks awfully similar to the one that we just created. And so what we're going to do is we're going to deploy an ERC 721 non-fungible token in the system. We'll show you how easy it is to A, get that source code, and then B, interact with it. And then we'll go through the process of minting a few NFTs that are representative of carbon credits that could be purchased. So the first thing we want to do is we want to talk about our smart contract management system. And there's another piece that goes along with that, which is our digital assets capability. So let's go down here to this digital assets button, and let's click the dashboard right here. And we're going to go into this tokens option. We're going to say, hey, let's create a new token. And what you'll notice here is that Kaleido is going to give us a huge library of templates that we can choose from. If we say, hey, I want to use the Kaleido token factory right here, we're going to notice that Kaleido is going to say, oh, okay, well, what type of flavor of token do you want? Do you just want a vanilla ERC 721, or do you want one that you can mint and burn as well? And the same config's available, for ERC 20. And so all you do is you just choose one of these. Kaleido will go and pull that source from OpenZeppelin. We have open source GitHub repositories where that source actually lives. And we'll compile it for you. And what happens if we had selected one of these, let's just select ERC 20 right here, the super vanilla one, and click next. What's going to happen behind the scenes on Kaleido is we're going to go grab that source code and we're going to compile it for you. So I've already done this a couple times with the ERC 20 mintable burnable and a 721 mintable burnable. But what we see here, here's the guy that I sort of just told Kaleido to compile for me. And Kaleido went and grabbed that source and did all that heavy lifting, spit out the ABI and spit out the bytecode. And now what we're able to do is we're able to take these compilations and we can push them up into one of our blockchains, and we get back REST APIs that we can talk to, right? And so we're not boiling the ocean here when we need to speak to Polygon Edge or speak to Ethereum. Kaleido's built smart middleware, and we've built brains for Ethereum and brains for Fabric. So you as an application developer over here on this side, you're doing Web 2 development, right? You're sending in just async post calls with lightweight JSON payloads. And this brain, this middleware right here, is going to do all the heavy lifting. It'll do that nonce management, right? The really tricky piece right there. But it'll also do signing. It'll also do item potency and give you that, guaranteed delivery of your payloads. So this is what I like to call our easy button into the blockchain. And then you get a really reliable easy button out of the blockchain as well. So we want to know about the fact that there's new carbon credits on the marketplace, or, put us in an insurance use case. We want to know that, someone has filed a claim with us as the counterparty right here. Our application just needs to tell Kaleido about the smart contracts and about the state changes or the signatures that we care about, and then tell Kaleido where the heck to deliver these things, right? It could be a WebSocket client, it could be, an API gateway, HTTP. But the takeaway is you get every single interesting thing that's happened on Kaleido, and then you can choose to do what you want with that information, whether you want to react to it or whether you just want to cache it right in your own local database for, hyper efficient optimal queries. So we'll look at those two pieces right there, and then we'll hammer the system with some traffic and look at a few of the other dashboards. So I'll click this ERC 721 mintable burnable, and then I'll click promote to environment. I'll just name it ERC 721. This is me naming the APIs basically. Now Kaleido says, hey, what environment, what blockchain do you want to push this source code to? So we'll push it to our carbon credits environment, Polygon Edge environment that I'd already created. And now we can say View Gateway API. And the cool thing is that every node gets taught about this source code, right? We've pushed this compilation to the environment at large. So every node knows about the same REST interface about all the methods inside of this source code right here. And so we can see all those functions that we're all familiar with inside of 721s and ERC20s right here. But the first thing we want to do is we just want to deploy this thing, right? And so we'll see that we have an interactive Swagger open API experience directly inside of Kaleido. But it's really as simple as, targeting this as your base URL, providing security credentials, providing a signing identity for this, instantiation or deployment, and then providing a few values right here. Okay, so we'll try this out. I'll just name it carbon credits. And I'll give it a symbol of CC right here. CC, okay. Couple parameters to draw your eyes to. KLD from, this is the identity that's going to sign the transaction. So this is just the default account on the node that I'm looking at this API through. We can send them in synchronously or asynchronously. Synchronous will wait for the transaction to execute. Async will give back a unique ID that we can track downstream. And then if we want to do, human-friendly naming conventions rather than hexadecimal, we can say carbon credits 123 right here. You click execute. And so it's as easy as that to like bring source code into the system and to deploy it onto the network. And it doesn't have to be, a Kaleido token template. That's just, really convenient and really cool because, almost every project wants to do something with digital assets, right? Some more than others, but there's usually a fit for digital assets, whether they're fungible, or enterprise NFTs somewhere inside of the system right here. So we see the response right here. And now if we get a little closer to programming, right, this is an example of a payload we could just chuck inside of our terminal, right? Or if we were using Postman or some Node.js server code, right, this is kind of like the request URL that we would target right here. There's not a ton of parameters, right? Like look at how unintimidating the JSON payload is. All we need to do is enumerate a method that we're calling and tell, the system about an identity and about, any other params that we want to invoke right there. So this will now create what we call an instance inside of Kaleido, right? So we see we have an instance called CC123. Still has a real Ethereum address that we can target right here. And I'll show you the classic JSON RPC route. But let's just go into this guy and mint a couple NFTs to ourselves right here so we can see how easy that would be. So if you notice what's changed right here is on the previous invocation, we were talking to /gateways. All we had was an API definition. We hadn't brought it to life. Once it's deployed on the blockchain, once it's brought to life, now we have what's called an instance of it. We have a real smart contract identity right here. So you'd call /gateways to deploy something, and then you can call /instances to invoke it, query it, or interact with it. Okay, so let's just go down to mint with URI right here, and we'll try it out. So I'm gonna mint it to myself, right? Mint it to this guy right here. And then we just need to give it an ID and give it some metadata, right? So I'll give it an ID of 1. And then we can choose, how to identify the metadata. This could be hanging out in IPFS, right, which Peter mentioned. There's built-in sort of very synergistic support for IPFS, right? So this could be your IPFS hash right here, right, for example. Or it could be, another hash representation where that data is hanging out in a PostgreSQL database, for example, right? You can represent the metadata, the URI, however it makes sense for your use case and for your end users and your industry. So again, as simple as using the OpenAPI Swagger inside of Kaleido, but we'll have the same type of unintimidating request URL and actual payload that we could send programmatically into the system, right? Looks awfully similar to the deployment payload, as does this request URL right here. Okay, so now if we go to the Data Explorer, go to the Block Explorer, let's start seeing some interesting things, right? So we see the 2 transactions that just came in. We see the deployment, and now we see the invocation. And we can click on that guy, and Kaleido will start telling us more interesting information, right? We'll actually be able to see the inputs of the transaction. And so this is great, right? We can see these inputs directly in Kaleido, but what we can also do is we can tell Kaleido to send this data to an external system, right? We can tell Kaleido that, hey, I care about anytime there's a transfer signature on, on that token smart contract. So all you would do is you create what we call an event stream. I'm not going to actually create this. I'm just going to show you mechanically how it would be done. Maybe we create an event called transfer right here, right? And now we just tell Kaleido, where we want it to be delivered, right? And so you could try like webhook.site or request catcher, right? Things like that, little subdomains that are free. And then you just need to tell Kaleido about the signature, right? So Kaleido knows where to send data for you right now, but it doesn't know what type of data that you're interested in, right? And so we create what's called a subscription or a signature. Sorry about that.
This is incredible. We got a question coming in from Darth Coder. He's wondering if there's like any plans to integrate chain bridge on Polygon Edge side chains on Kaleido.
Hi, this is Peter here. Jim might chip in as well. So I think there's a really significant evolution happening here, and there's chain bridge today, but obviously with supernets and the evolution that's happening in that space, the relationship between these, I guess, side chains, layer 3 chains that Jim was mentioning earlier, and the parent chain is really evolving. And a technology like Chainbridge, you can run it with Kaleido. We don't have a click button for us at the moment. You can use it with Kaleido today. Is a less evolved bridge than if you think about the way that Polygon L2 relates to the mainnet. The way that the layer 3s need to relate to the Polygon L2, and the way that state can move backwards and forwards in a much more decentralized way, with multiple parties voting on the movement of that state. That evolution is something we're really closely partnering with Polygon on. So it's really Polygon to share where that roadmap is and where it's going. I don't want to do that on Polygon's behalf, but there is a really close partnership there, and really there's a next state for blockchain, where these application specific blockchains and the movement of state becomes so much easier than it is today between chains, and so much more standardized. And we're excited to be part of building that net new future. I'm sorry, Dovcoder, that was not such a direct, short answer to your question. The answer is you can use Chainbridge with today, but we don't have a hosted version of it. But watch this space, because these L3s are going to get really exciting over the coming months.
Cool. Nick, are you back? Are you able to share again?
Yeah, I'm back, but I'm on a different machine that doesn't have my test harnesses on it. But we can finish looking through Kaleido. We're just gonna, unfortunately, miss the high throughput portion of this demo. So
yeah, I'm going to fill the space, Nick, if that's all right, just for a second. With talking about how what you saw relates to Hyperledger Firefly. I said it's a personal, passionate topic of mine. So as Nick's been demonstrating, and as Jim said at the beginning, we've been doing these enterprise solutions on blockchain for a number of years, and this, like all of that stuff that Nick was demonstrating, the ability to generate REST APIs, the ability to stream transactions at really high volumes, do with the nonce management against organizational keys rather than keys that are like lots of, a million individual users using one key each, versus there's an enterprise managing a whole bunch of employees doing a whole bunch of actions that organization is going to sign off on. The stack that's needed to that, the ability to get transactions on reliably, get events off, generate those REST APIs. Kaleido's done a heck of a lot of innovation in that space. But for blockchain as a whole to move forwards at the right pace, it was obvious that that needed to be an open source initiative. So we actually donated all of that core engine technology that's been used in all these production projects at the the inception of the Hyperledger Firefly project. And then Hyperledger Firefly adds a whole bunch of layers on top of that. If you use the full Firefly stack, you get a database, you get a full knowledge of the NFTs, that transaction history. That's all built into the Firefly stack. And I guess for this audience, you didn't want to share that's a truly open project, right? You can not just download the source, but it's managed by the Linux Foundation, so you can contribute to its future as well. So that's the relationship, is that Kaleido, obviously we provide a hardened enterprise version of Firefly and really involved with the development of it. But that is also an open source project, and in a few minutes you can get that running on your laptop, including a blockchain on your local laptop, and give that a try as well that's something you're interested in. Just go to the, I'll pop a link to the docs for Firefly into the chat.
Thanks, Peter. Okay, so let's hop back into Kaleido. Really sorry about that. We're missing what was going to be the coolest part, where we just get to pelt the system with thousands of transactions. We can take a look at the environment that I'd already created. I didn't really hammer it as much as I wanted to, but in about 10 seconds, we were able to get 869 transactions into the system. And what these were actually were token transactions, right? And so inside of this environment, inside of this Polygon Edge blockchain, what we created was a ERC20 smart contract right here, right? This mathematic smart contract, and we just minted 100 tokens, right? Like over the course of 500 different calls or 450 different calls, and these all came in asynchronously, right, and made their way into 1 or 2 blocks inside of the system. And so this is kind of like training wheels demonstration of how much traffic you can get into it. I signed all of these with the exact same account. They all came from a single client. But if we think about spreading the application tier a bit more horizontally, using different signing accounts and different systems to put data into the system, you get an idea of how much throughput and how much traffic Polygon and Kaleido, right, with our Kafka-backed middleware, can really sustain. So let's actually create those events, right? Since I wasn't able to show you the high throughput, we can click on a node super quickly right here, and just so you guys know, like, about not all the bells and whistles, but some of the bells and whistles. You have like very toggleable logs right here, where you can see any information that's happening right within your ETH signer component or your wallet component. You can see the core blockchain logs, but you can also see the REST API gateway logs, right, where we were firing in those transactions. And what we'll notice is that if we have events configured inside of this, right, that it'll also emit events for us, right? And so what we can do is, let's go ahead and create an event stream on this node, and let's play back all of those token transfers or all those mint operations that I created, right? And so let's create a event stream called tokens minted right here, right? We'll deliver it with a webhook, right? Click next right here. And now we'll actually give it a proper URL, right? Rather than that dummy thing. So I'll just use webhook.site. Like I said, request catcher is a good one as well. So we can copy that. And now Kaleido knows about a real endpoint to send this data to. One awesome option that we tend to see is folks using serverless functions on AWS or Azure. So you kind of just front that logic with like a little API gateway that has security on it. And then your serverless function can help automate what you want to do with those events, park them in a database, trigger a downstream process, etc. So here's the event, right? This isn't terribly interesting yet. All we've done is said, this is where I want the data to be delivered. But now we can say what type of data we want to be delivered, right? Now I want to know about minted right here, right? This could be burnt, this could be transferred as well. So we can say select a gateway API. I'll go ahead and select this one that Kaleido already knows about. And now we see that all of those events are automatically indexed for free for us. And now what we can do is we can say, hey, give me the latest events, or give me all the events from block 0 right here. And we can say, hey, tell me about the events from a specific smart contract, or tell me about every single event that matches that signature, right, that we created. So we can click finish here, and what it'll do is whatever endpoint we've configured, right, it's gonna send all of those state changes, all of those signatures, right? And so what we're gonna see here is that this is just gonna absolutely get pummeled, right? And so this is sort of representation of the high throughput, but this is the high throughput coming out the other side, right? All of that data, all of those transactions were already in the system, and now Kaleido and Apache Kafka are just reliably delivering those payloads and those state changes back to our our Lambda function, our backend database right here. And so think of how powerful this is in two scenarios. A, right, just for that dynamic notification in a multi-party system, but B, right, networks aren't static. people join, 6 months, a year down the road, and they would like to have not only a synchronized blockchain ledger, but a synchronized application tier as well. And so this lets them come into the system, stand up one of the dApps, right, the decentralized application stacks, and then their app can get, apples to apples, one-to-one with the rest of the network, right? They're going to be able to replay and ingest all of the information that they're supposed to see. Now, there are classes of private information that often happen. We're not going to sit here and just look at events coming in for 5 minutes, but just to give you an idea of like high throughput that the system supports it, but it also supports it, coming out the other side as well. So Peter talked a bit about Firefly, right? And I think I might even have a Firefly environment here. Yeah, I do. And this is really awesome technology and really, really fascinating, but it also encapsulates some important components, specifically these different levels between what can be public and what can be private inside of a network. And so if we click on one of these super nodes right here, apologies for the Slack, and we go ahead and open up this, web UI, this Explorer that's going to show us, all of the different information that's happened, right, with tokens or with public messages or with private messages or with identities inside of the system. It's going to let us, sort of differentiate between those classes of public and private information. And, we also provide you with this fully baked interactive sandbox right here as well, where you can actually use functional code, right? This is like fully functional baked code right here. And so I think inside of this guy, I've hopefully done like a private message. It's possible that I haven't, but what you're able to, so I haven't done one. So let's do one real quick. So I'll open the sandbox right here, and what we see is that this is fully functional code, right? And so we can send public messages, private messages. We can define schemas. If we have addresses, right, for tokens, we can bring those into the system, right? Or if we have custom smart contracts, we can bring those into the system too. But let's just look at, sending a public message through the system, right? Hello world right here. Right? And so this will go to everyone, right? Everyone inside of the system is going to be able to see this event right here, and they're going to be able to ingest it, right? But maybe we're in a supply chain world, right? Or maybe we're in, a trade finance world, right? Where, we're dealing with invoicing information or sensitive ESG information. Well, you determine a subset of the recipients, of the participants inside of your network, and you can keep that data completely off of the blockchain, and you can reference it on the blockchain with what we call a pin. You can pin a hash to it. And you don't even have to do that. You can keep the entire history of that private message completely off the blockchain and not even pin a hash to it as well, right? And so you have these different tranches or different classes of, public, private, super private, and you can even, define whether it's an attachment, whether it's, JSON schema, whether it's just a string, or if you need to conform with, specific data types and schemas as well. So that's like a whirlwind tour through Firefly, but what it does is, think of Firefly as a brain on top of all these mini brains that I showed you, and the more information you teach Firefly about, subscriptions and, smart contract addresses and identities, the smarter and smarter that brain becomes, and now you see that you have this, really, really robust, really compelling surface area, a single API to do all things Web3, not just with, a private consortia Polygon Edge chain, but, into the broader world of Web3. That's what's really exciting about this project and about that API surface as well. So I know we're close to the top of the hour, so I'll stop sharing and see if there's one or two final questions from the folks.
Yeah, guys, drop some questions in the chat if you got them. This has definitely been extremely exciting and fascinating to learn all about this. Very grateful that we got to have a 1 hour speed run overview of the whole Kaleido infrastructure. It's honestly incredible what you guys are doing. It's
Yeah, and I'll say as well, Kaleido's free, right? We have different subscription tiers, but there's no barrier to entry on Kaleido. So, go to kaleido.io. I know there's a link in the chat somewhere. It'll take you all of 30 seconds to create an account. You can spin up your own little Polygon Edge IBFT orchestration and, use our token templates or, bring some solidity of your own. try out these REST APIs, try out these events, or just use your existing Web3 application and see how simple it is to just target that JSON RPC endpoint. We invite everyone to sign up and try it out and get in touch with us. We're here to learn more about your use cases, but also here to help as well.
Yeah. So one question I always like to ask projects is like, how do they generate revenue? You mentioned this is free just now. Do you also have like some other like ways of do you have ways of generating revenue then? Like,
yeah, of course. So we have multiple subscription tiers. There's one that we call the starter tier that is, no credit card required, just, 0 barrier to entry. It, of course, has some limitations around the number of nodes you can create, the number of environments, the types of configurations. But it's it's a 101, like get you started sort of, blockchain experience where you still get the built-in high availability disaster recovery SOC 2 type 2 compliance that Kaleido has. And then you climb up the ladder. You start going to different subscription tiers where you're in more of the development phase, or you're more in the pilot phase where you need different sized environments and different sizes of nodes, and maybe you need integration with cloud HSM services or with identity servers right there. So it's very much an as a service model, right? Very similar to a cloud provider where you pay for what you use, right? You want to run 300 blockchain nodes, that's fine. That's 300 runtimes that have an hourly cost. So that's the main portion of the Kaleido business. Oh, my other machine came back to life. Sorry. And then we also, on a case-by-case basis, we'll do some professional services work with different projects of different shapes and sizes, typically in the larger enterprise space, but we also do have that portion of the company as well.
fantastic. So yeah, guys, once again, I encourage you, if you have any questions, to drop them in the chat right now while we still have these guys here. Otherwise, where would the best place to follow up with you be?
Yeah, so tons of different mediums. We do have a Kaleido Discord, so that's option one. Like I said, the product is free, and there's a bunch of different, sort of outlets inside of there. There's a contact us feature, so those two are great. There's a chat feature on Kaleido.io, just the main website. And then you can, reach, the commercial team by emailing sales@Kaleido.io. You can reach the technical team or support team by emailing support@Kaleido.io. But pretty much if you just visit Kaleido.io in any capacity, you'll be able to get in touch with us pretty easily.
Fantastic. Well, you guys basically answered all the questions that I had for you. That was a very thorough and in-depth presentation.
If folks want to stay for one more minute, I think my other machine came back to life, so I can show the high throughput real quickly, if that would be of interest.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we can go over the time. That's not a problem at all.
Okay. All right. I hope I didn't jinx it. It's like a 6-year-old laptop, but it's near and dear to my heart, so I haven't quite thrown it out yet. So let me stop on this machine. Just bear with me for 1 second. Okay. All right. Let me rejoin the server.
And again, while he's doing that, I'll just bring up if anyone from the audience has any other questions or whatnot, feel free to go ahead and ask them. We'd be happy to answer those.
Okay. Can you guys see this screen okay, Trevor? Can you just confirm for me? Okay.
We can.
Okay. So we're going to go back to the high throughput environment. We'll go to apps right here. What I've done is I've deployed that token that we just took a look at right there. And then we have a program right here where I gave a friendly name to that token. I called it ERC20 Matic. And we're just going to say, hey, this is the identity on node number 1. These are security credentials. This is the RESTful interface, right? This is the REST API interface versus the JSON RPC interface. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to mint 100 tokens to ourselves repeatedly over here 500 times. So if we call this program right here, just a little Node.js program, we should be able to see a bunch of async 202s coming back from the system right there. So there's 500 of those. We could tune this up to 1,000 to 5,000, get crazy with it. But what we'll notice is if we go to our block explorer right now, that interesting stuff is starting to happen, right? We now have, whoa, look at all these transactions. So 390 right there. So 357 got into that block, 333, and then, 110 into that. So there's our 500 transactions that we just pummeled into the system with a simple little REST API call right there. The other flavor that you have, and all this is open sourced as well, the other flavor is you can target the JSON RPC endpoint for your node. So if we look at a Kaleido node right here, we see that there's kind of 3 doors we can go through. There's the classic Web3 door. Here's the door that we just went through, and then the WebSocket one, right? And so what I'll show you now is a different program that's going to target this piece right here, where Kaleido is no longer doing the nonce management for us. So what we want is we're going to just use this smart contract called simple storage. It just stores a positive integer. And so we'll pass it 1, 2, 3. I'm saying let's simulate one connection, one client right here for workers, but we could up that to 5 or 10. I'm saying let's send in 200 transactions. Here's the address. Here's the JSON RPC endpoint for the node. And it has security credentials, what we call application credentials, embedded in line. And then here's an address, right? This is that same identity that we've been using all day right here. So we can sign these right here. This will pre-assemble 200 transactions, and then it'll pull for those transaction receipts as well. And so as soon as those get drip fed into the system, we can go back to our block explorer and we can see those guys coming through. Granted, that was just 200, right? So I didn't get crazy there, but we see 2285, and then we should see about 100 make it into the next block there. So just 2 different flavors, right, of how you can, hit the system. I have large nodes inside of this environment right here. And so, a large node obviously is going to accommodate more requests and more client connections. But you can start with a small node, and you can start, allowing your application to deal with, maybe rate limiting failures, right? Our server will throw you, a response code if you're hitting the ingress too hard, and you can write your own logic to deal with that, right? You can say, okay, if I receive, a 429, that's the code, right? The server-side error code, you say, okay, well, wait 50 milliseconds. If I receive it again, wait 500 milliseconds, et cetera, right? So just kind of elegant exponential back-off retry. So yeah, that's the only thing that missed. I'm glad the event streams came out the other side and gave you guys a little flavor of the high throughput there, but that's actually more representative of hammering real transactions into the system. So that'll wrap it up for I think for what I wanted to show. And this machine's not in great shape, so I don't even think I can stop sharing my screen at the moment.
All right. Well, thanks for showing that to us, Nick. Yeah, I guess Zanzi, anything else that
No, that you guys covered everything. Aesop was just asking if this call is recorded, and yes, it is. So I'll make sure to drop the recording link in the chat afterwards, so in case anyone wants to watch it again or show their friends. And I feel like you guys will probably get a lot of questions after this once everyone starts playing around with everything. So
cool. Sounds great. Well, we look forward to it, and appreciate you guys giving us a stage to come in here and share a little bit about what we're building.
Anytime. It was incredibly fascinating. Sharkrit is wondering if he could have access to the slide deck, possibly. But
yeah. We'll take care of that offline, Sharkrit. No problem.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you so much for coming out, guys. It was incredible having you, and absolutely amazing to learn all about everything that you're offering. Really enjoyed this, and it was a great honor to meet all of you. So.
All right.
So thanks for having us. We enjoyed it, and really look forward to getting in touch with the community. So please reach out in any of those ways that we talked about.
Yeah, definitely. All the links are in the chat, guys, to follow up with Kaleido. And thanks so much, everybody, for coming out today and partaking in this AMA.
Cool. Thanks all.
All right. Have a great day, everybody.